Good morning. It is Craig Bennett, aka Cash Cake, here with DFSArmy with an NBA First Look podcast on today's 6-game slate on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. Got a nice little 6-game slate. We'll talk about any COVID issues that we have, talk about lines, any line movement, and we'll kind of build a sample DraftKings lineup. I'll also talk about Fanduel pricing as well. Just kind of talking some of my favorite plays early. As you know, NBA this season has been extremely fluid with COVID going on, guys in and out, guys signing on 10-day contracts. What could be great plays this morning might not be great plays later. So that's why you got to sign up for DFSArmy VIP membership, where we break down all the news, not only tell you who's in or out, but who's the play. So sign up, use promo code CashCake, save yourself 10% in the link below. And join us over there, and hopefully we can help you win some cash. But with that, if you like these videos, hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And let's jump right into this and knock it out. All right, as you can see, I have DraftKings up on the board here. We'll talk about both FanDuel and DraftKings pricing, but we'll just kind of go game by game, talk about the injuries that we do know, or the COVID issues that we do know. And again, things can change, but this is just a quick first look. First game we got is OKC at Washington. This is a 216.5 over under. Washington favored by 9.5 here. Injury news on the Washington side. Thomas Bryant's still out. Montrezl Harrell is back, so that's kind of interesting. He's a decent price across the industry here. Anthony Gill is still out. And on OKC side, we got Lou Dort. He is back. And the only really guys we got out are Kendrick Williams and Isaiah Roby. So they're kind of getting pretty healthy here. So with Dort coming back off injury, I think he had a face issue. They're kind of full. So look at OKC guys. We got Gilgeous-Alexander at 7,600 on DraftKings. That's a pretty fair price for him, but at the same time, it's not with him at full strength. He's probably only one of the ones I would consider. We got Josh Giddey. He's 6,600 over there on FanDuel, 6,900 on DraftKings. I'd consider him there more on FanDuel. But not a guy I really want to play with SGA back. He's just going to take that usage away from him. His assist rates go down and everything else. So not a guy I'm really looking at. Lou Dort at 5,200 on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. He'll always be a GPP target for me, just because he can get hot. If he starts chucking the ball, he will not stop. He's got 40-point upside. Not a cash play by any stretch of the imagination. Not the best matchup against Washington. He played 35 minutes in one game against Washington, put up 32 DraftKings points. You would take that at a salary of, 5,200 on DraftKings and both FanDuel. I'm sorry, and 5,600 on FanDuel. But again, just a GPP tournament. We could still see Robinson Earl in that starting lineup. He is 3,700 on DraftKings, 4,100 on FanDuel. I guess he could be some value you could kind of look at, but nobody that I'm really targeting. The minutes just get spread around with this team outside of Josh Giddey, SGA, and Lou Dort. Baisley, Earl, Derek Favors. They just play, 10, 12 guys deep, and I just don't like playing guys that are playing mid to low 20 minutes outside of those top three. So if it's a last piece, maybe Robinson Earl, if he continues to get the start. Favors is 3,500 on FanDuel. Over here on DraftKings, he's sitting at the men 3K, but the minutes just aren't there for him, and that's where I struggle, with playing any of these guys. It's just the minutes that they're gonna see, even when he starts, 16 minutes, 13 minutes, 16 minutes, they're just not going to get a GPP winning lineup with that. So again, not a whole lot of love here. I would just focus on these top three guys. And not so much Giddey on DraftKings at 6,900. We know he's got upside, but with SGA back, it's just going to take a hit. These games where he's putting up 50, 60, 40 fantasy points are all when SGA is off the court. So just do not like it much. SGA and Dort would be the guys that I would look at here. Over on the Washington side, Bradley Beal is 9,500 on DraftKings. Over here on FanDuel, same kind of thing, 9,500. Again, they're pretty healthy. Bryant's been out basically all year. So they're basically back to full health. So it's really hard to trust these guys. Kyle Kuzma, 8,400 is way overpriced with, Dinwiddie back in the rotation. When they get all these back, Rui's back. Montrezl Harrell, like I said, he's a little interesting piece here, so I can't pay that at all. Bradley Beal, tournament option only. You can't play him cash at that price. With Dinwiddie back, I just don't like playing him that much. Dinwiddie $6K on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel. Just don't love it a ton. Again, a team that can run 10, 12 guys deep outside of, Bradley Beal, Kuzma, and Dinwiddie, who gets, guys over 30 minutes. But, Gafford at 6,200 on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. Maybe an interesting spot on FanDuel at 5,600. You could say the same about Montrezl Harrell, 4,900 on FanDuel, 4,700 on DraftKings. It comes down to how many minutes he's actually going to play. If he's only going to see around 20 minutes, he has a hard time to get to that ceiling. So, nobody that I'm really gravitating towards. I don't mind taking some shots in GPPs because he can get there in a hurry. But again, it's just kind of an ugly game. Like I said, it's Washington favored by 10 because they're almost completely healthy, and it's a pretty low total. I think there's better spots here. So don't love this a lot. Again, KCP, I hate playing them when they're all injured, so let alone when you get everybody back. Even if he saw 30 minutes, he's just the last option here. 4,800 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. No, thank you. So for me, might take some chances on Harrell on DraftKings, and then over on FanDuel, take some shots at Harrell and Gafford, and that would be just about it. Let's head on to the next game here. We got Phoenix at Toronto. This game is sitting at a 223.5 over under. It opened at 217. So as of 6:00 this morning on the East Coast, it's moved 6.5 points. So looks like there's going to be some scoring in this game. We have Phoenix favored by 4 here. We know there's tight rotations with Toronto, but we'll start with Phoenix side, looking at their injury situation. Cameron Johnson is out, so that will open up some minutes. But, now that we have Jay Crowder back, he's going to suck up a lot of those minutes. Justin Jackson is out. Ish Wainwright is out for Phoenix. Nader's out. Those guys don't really matter. Cam Johnson's the one, that could open up some minutes here for, like I said, a Crowder or, Bridges can take a few more minutes here. Landry Shamet is back. But again, it's, he's been out for a little bit. Conditioning, I don't really like him that much. On the Toronto side, Scotty Barnes is questionable. Gary Trent is questionable. If one of those guys or both of them have to sit, we would get, some value over on the Toronto side. And Wannabe is back in. He's off the injury report. So again, on the Phoenix side here, we got Booker 8,600 over on FanDuel. He's 8,500. Just tournaments only for me. But again, this is, I believe, the second highest over under on the game. The highest one is Minnesota at the Pelicans. But a game I think we can target here. Chris Paul, 7,700 DraftKings, 8,100 FanDuel. Again, when they both kind of play, I don't want a ton here. They've been playing pretty good ball, and maybe you have to do a little bit more of the offensive load. Cam Johnson's been really good, helping them facilitate, scoring points and whatnot. So just at these price points, I don't love them on this slate. But guys, you can look at playing in tournaments because they can go off anytime. Ayton at 7,200 and DraftKings 7,300 on FanDuel. I think we can look at him, especially going up Toronto. They don't really have anyone that can stop him. So I don't mind some Ayton here. Played 32 and 31 minutes his last two. He was off for a good clip and then only played 32 minutes on January 8th, put up 25 DraftKings points. But, they kind of lost to Miami there and he didn't get full run. So, we can expect probably mid-30 minutes, low to mid-30 minutes out of him. And I think that's a fair price where he can get there. Kind of prefer that on FanDuel more than DraftKings. But I don't mind taking some shots at him at that price point. Cam Payne's always interesting. 4,400 on DraftKings, 5K on FanDuel. I like the price point on DraftKings. He just always comes off the bench. Maybe with no Cam Johnson, he's going to shoot a little bit more. He doesn't play a ton of minutes, but he just, constantly puts up, 15 to 20 DraftKings points with up to 30. And at that price point, if we can get a ceiling out of him, I definitely don't mind taking some shots at a Cam, at a Payne. JaVale McGee, 5K on FanDuel. He's sitting at 4,300 on DraftKings. I just can't play that. They've been playing a lot of Jalen Smith lately over McGee. Jalen Smith is 4,700 on FanDuel, 5K on DraftKings. I can't play that either. The one guy, again, I think my favorite play, price point wise, is definitely Jay Crowder here, 3,900 on DraftKings, 4,100 on FanDuel. Again, with no Cam Johnson, he's going to have to do a lot more, and we've seen him fill up the stat page here, throughout the season. So, he's definitely got not the best floor in the world, but I think the minutes and the opportunity are going to be there for him that you can definitely consider him a cash consideration at that price point. And then Mikal Bridges, 5,300 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel. Another situation where I think you can play him in cash as well. He's going to play, mid-30s minutes with upside here. With no Cam Johnson, both those guys are the ones that, to me, are going to benefit the most and the guys that I want to look at. So on DraftKings, Jay Crowder, Bridges, Payne are the guys I would kind of look at the most, with Ayton, Paul, and Booker all being like more tournament options, with Ayton on FanDuel more of a guy that I would look at as a cash piece over there. Let's look on the Toronto side. Fred VanVleet just absolutely went off against Utah the other day when Utah was running out all their scrubs. Dude put up 76 DraftKings points with a triple-double. Put up 50 against the Pelicans in 39 minutes. We know Nick Nurse is going to run their guys out an absolute ton. So the minutes are going to be there for those guys, but he is priced accordingly. 9,600 on DraftKings and 9,700 on FanDuel. I don't think we're going to get a lot of value out of that. So nobody that I'd want to target in cash games, but in tournaments, he's got massive upside. So you got to look at, especially if Gary Trent or Scotty Barnes are out, that would open up, even more shots for him and Siakam and OG. I'd have to look at that a little bit. Siakam at 9,200 on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel. I do not like that price on FanDuel. Same with DraftKings. It's pretty expensive, more of a tournament play at that price. But again, if those guys sit, they have an opportunity to get way more upside here. OG Anunoby at 6,300 on DraftKings, 6,700 on FanDuel. I think I like him the most, especially if Scotty Barnes sits. He kind of takes away from him a little bit here, And that price point, we've seen massive ceilings out of OG, but I think when, Scotty Barnes plays, he kind of takes away his upside because he's playing a ton of minutes and he does a lot of similar things that OG does, but maybe Scotty Barnes has even a more polished offensive game than OG does. So if we get Scotty Barnes sitting, I'm probably going to core OG Anunoby at 6,300. It's just a great price point that I think he has good ceiling. And I think you could still play him if Barnes plays, but I always tend to like to play Barnes more than OG if they're both playing. Barnes is 6,600 on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. If Barnes ends up playing, that is just a stupid low price for him on FanDuel. Same with Gary Trent. Gary Trent 5,300 on DraftKings, 5,200 on FanDuel. Again, fantastic play. I would look at these three guys on DraftKings: Barnes, OG, and Trent. And if Barnes sits, OG's going to be a core play for me by far. And if Trent sits, it's going to open up a lot more scoring for VanVleet, Siakam. And then we can see some of these other guys. If Scotty Barnes and Trent both sit, we probably see one of Achua or Boucher, slide in that starting lineup. And they're extremely cheap. And Birch would be interesting at that point too. Because they probably slide Siakam at the 4, OG at the 3. So there's some value here if those guys sit, but if they do play, I still like them. They're great price points here. So definitely a team I would have a couple pieces from if these guys sit. Even if they play, I still want a few pieces of them, and Barnes and Trent and OG. I think those are fair price points with upside. Let's head on over to the next game where we got Detroit at Chicago. This is a 221 over under. It opened at 220.5, so it just moved a half a point up. Chicago is favored by 14 here against Detroit. On the Detroit side, looking at injury consideration, Frank Jackson is still out. Bol, he got traded from Denver. He is questionable here. Maybe they'll finally let Bol eat since he's not playing under Malone over in Denver. So that'll be interesting how they kind of get him going there with their big guys kind of on the bench. It'll be kind of fun and see if he does play. Olynyk's still out. And again, as long as Olynyk's I think he's supposed to return next week with that MCL sprain, but maybe we can see some Bobo before Kelly Olynyk comes back. And then on the Chicago side, we got no Alex Caruso as the main one. And other than that, they're pretty healthy. So on the Detroit side, again, they just played last night. Cade Cunningham is 7,800 on DraftKings. Over here on FanDuel, he is 6,500. That's still a stupid price on FanDuel. Even being a big dog like this, he put up a really good game last night. Going up against Utah, where they actually won by double digits. Put up 50 spot here. So I just don't love this matchup against Chicago. I hope people kind of chase those points. I still think you can get there on FanDuel at 6,500, but on DraftKings, I don't really like that. Sadiq Bey at 7,500 on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel. Again, way better prices on FanDuel on these guys than on DraftKings. But again, Casey, who knows what he's going to do with these rotations? If Bol does play, how many minutes is he going to play? Maybe if it's a blowout, he lets him run a lot. He's min price on FanDuel, and over on DraftKings. He's min price at 3K as well, so he could be an interesting spot if we do get some news, early in the day or later in the day that Bol is going to play. Like you can play him at the power forward center over here on DraftKings, but maybe he'll get some run. So it could make a really interesting GPP piece because, again, new coaching regime that he's under, maybe they'll actually let him run on that back-to-back, where they won last night. They might have some tired legs. Again, with Chicago being 14-point favorites, why not see what he can do? So might be an interesting piece to look at here. Isaiah Stewart, don't really love it. 4,700 on DraftKings, 5K on FanDuel. I just don't love most of these guys. I guess if you want to take some shots at maybe Killian Hayes on FanDuel at 3,700, he's 3,800 on DraftKings. Maybe he can get some decent run if they get, blown out. Maybe Corey Joseph gets some run or Lee. I just don't love this team right now. So not somebody I'm going to target heavily at all. I mean, they have an implied team total of 103. So I'm not super excited over here. On the Chicago side, with them being pretty healthy, it's really hard to target these guys. Zach LaVine is 9,400 on DraftKings. He's sitting at 7,500 on FanDuel, so that's a really fair price on FanDuel. I think he can easily get there, even in limited. He gets 3/4 a run against Detroit, so I like that price on FanDuel. And DraftKings at 9,400, no way. I would much rather play the Toronto guys with upside that we talked about before, and Siakam and Fred VanVleet. I wouldn't play that. Same with Vucevic here, 9K on DraftKings, 9,100 on FanDuel. Again, I don't know if he's going to see the minutes here. I don't think there's massive upside, so I don't think I really want to go there. DeMar DeRozan, 8,700 on DraftKings, 8,200 on FanDuel. A guy that I would look at more so than Vooch. You get a little bit of a price savings. You can play him at the power forward slot. Lonzo Ball, 6,800 on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel. Another one of those things where I think, it's a fair price. I don't mind playing him. If it blows out, we might look at a Derrick Jones Jr. at 3,300 on DraftKings, 3,800 on FanDuel, or another way we can look at it is Dosunmu, man, ILL, buddy, fighting the line. I love this kid. 3,600 on DraftKings, 4K on FanDuel. He would get some blowout run as well, and maybe an interesting GPP piece. So some of these cheaper guys I don't mind. Derrick Jones Jr., Dosunmu, I like him. Kobe White, 5,600 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. Again, he would probably get some extended run here if they were up. So I don't mind taking some shots at these guys in tournaments. And I just don't like these price points when I compare them to some of these other guys in that Toronto game where you have a way higher over-under, way more competitive, and I think the upside is way higher there. So, not super interested in the studs here for Chicago. More the bench pieces here and those guys that we talked about. Let's move on to the next game where we have Golden State at Memphis. This game is a 218.5 over under. Golden State favored by 1. Gary Payton is questionable. Draymond Green is out. I think he's supposed to return on Thursday. Otto Porter's questionable. Steven Adams is questionable on the Memphis side. So Klay Thompson's back, man. Klay Thompson is back. I don't know if anybody watched that game on Sunday. The dude did not miss a beat when it come to shooting. I think he saw 20 minutes. He put up 18 shots in 20 minutes. 24 DraftKings points. He is 6K. I'm sure they're going to slowly move up. They're not going to push his minutes a ton. So I can't play him. He's probably going to be around this 20-minute range for a while. There's plenty of season left. There's no reason to really push him real heavy here. So 6K on DraftKings, 6,300 on Fanduel. I just don't think he's going to see the minutes unless Kerr comes out early in a press conference and says he's going to get X amount of minutes. I just don't see him getting more than 20, 22 minutes, and I'm not going to pay that price for him. Steph Curry is 10-7 on DraftKings, 10-8 on Fanduel. Again, pretty pricey. I'd much rather go to those Toronto guys, the Phoenix guys than I would here. But, Curry's got a ceiling. So, he can hit it. I just not sure that I really want to go there. I don't know. With Draymond out, it's like, he's the facilitator there when Curry's running around off all those screens, and I just don't love it. Wiggins, 6,400 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. I think with Klay Thompson back, it's going to take some shots away from him, so I don't think he actually gets there, so I don't really love it. Jordan Poole at 5,200 on FanDuel, 5,200 on DraftKings. Again, it's one of those things where I don't really love it. I think the minutes are going to be spread out a ton here. With Klay back, it leaves a lot of uncertainty and a lot of shots away from these guys, where Poole and Wiggins are just not going to be able to shoot as much because, Klay Thompson's going to shoot his 20 shots, man. I mean, that's what he does. If Porter and Gary Payton were to sit, then maybe I would have some interest in Poole. Just in minutes wise, because we figured, maybe his minutes will bump up to 30 instead of around the 25 range if Porter does play. If Porter and Gary Payton play, I'm kind of off this team in general. But if they do sit, maybe some Toscano Anderson at 3,600 on FanDuel. 3K on DraftKings. He could be interesting. He'll have to play a little bit more minutes. Bjelica at 3,600 on FanDuel, 3,400 on DraftKings. Could be interesting to play some more of those small forward, power forward minutes that we're going to need. I'm not a big fan of Iggy. He's 4,600 on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings. But again, more of the value pieces here. That mid-range is just too convoluted on this Golden State team with Klay Thompson back, and it's just one of those things I'm not really going to attack. Over on the Memphis side, man, I don't know if you saw that block John Morant had last game, but the dude's head was almost above the rim when he pinned it against the backboard. So if you haven't seen that, go out on YouTube and check it out. It's a hell of a block. 8,900 on DraftKings. I just would rather pay this all day long than pay for Steph at this price. 9,900 on FanDuel, so not the best price there. But on DraftKings at 8,900, that is a misprice. I love him here. This game should be competitive, so he's going to play a ton of minutes. Desmond Bane, 6,500 on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel. Another piece that I love both these guys. I think they're fairly priced. Jaren Jackson Jr., 7,100 on DraftKings, 7K on FanDuel. He can get handsy, but if we do get Adams out, we might see some more Jackson here at the 5. And the minutes might have to be there, going up against Looney and those guys, or, Golden State can play small as well. And he has no problem getting up and down the court. He's very athletic. So if Adams were to sit, I might have more interest in Jaren Jackson. DeAnthony Melton, he's sitting at 4,700 on DraftKings. Probably going to come off the bench again. 6,200 on FanDuel. You can't pay that. Interesting price on DraftKings at 4,700. Something we can look at. Kyle Anderson back just kind of screws up some of these, fringe pieces here. 5,700 on FanDuel, 5K on DraftKings. He's another piece that I'd have more interest in if Adam sits because his rebounds will go up. He does a little bit of everything. So I don't mind a little bit of Kyle Anderson if Adams sits. I think the minutes are going to go up, and I don't think people are going to play him, and I don't think the projections will be where they should be. So I do have some interest there. And then in tournaments, Clark, he's priced out for me. 5,100 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel. I don't really like that. So I'm going to stick to John Morant on DraftKings, Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Kyle Anderson, the guys I'm going to look at, and then Melton after that. Are the guys I'm going to look at. But, yeah, definitely some pieces on DraftKings we can look at on the Memphis side of the ball. Let's head on to the next game where we got Minnesota at the Pelicans. 227 over-under here with Minnesota favored by 4. Looking at the injury report here, Looks like Patrick Beverly is questionable. And on the Pelicans side, Josh Hart should be in, and Satoransky should be in as well. So kind of a fully healthy squads on both sides. It seems like this, pretty healthy across the board here. Cat, 9,700 on FanDuel, 10K on DraftKings. I don't mind taking some shots at him in tournaments. There's massive upside here, but going up against Joe Val, he's averaged 52 DraftKings points, up against the Pelicans. I think one of the games I remember him fouling out. They like to go at each other, so I don't mind taking some chances of him. I like the price better on FanDuel at 9,700, but again, tournaments I have no problem there. D'Angelo Russell, D-Russ, man, 7,600 on FanDuel, great price over there. 8K on DraftKings, just tournaments only. Anthony Edwards, 8,200 on FanDuel, 7,900 on DraftKings. This is the kind of thing is I don't want to play both these guys. I would set a rule if you're using the domination station or optimizer over at DFSArmy. I'd set a rule where I don't want one of D-Russ and Ant here, because I think if one of them has a ceiling game, the other one's not. And I might make a rule where I don't want one of three of these guys. I think I want one of these guys, but I don't think all of them are going to hit a ceiling. So at their price points, I don't really love it. Patrick Beverly's going to sit. We're going to see the ball in the hands of D-Russ and Ant a lot more, and those assists are going to go up. So it's one thing that I would look at. I don't really like the rest of this team when all these guys are healthy. These peripheral pieces just won't have the usage or the ball in their hands as much. Vanderbilt at 6,200 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. Don't really love it. I think more of a FanDuel play for me. It's more of a secondary piece. I don't love it. And all these guys down here, it's just going to be those top three guys for me. Over on the Pelicans side, Joe Val, 8,500 on DraftKings, 7,900 on FanDuel. Like I said, we've seen some big games out of him going up against Cat this year. Averaged 45 DraftKings points against him, but he had a big, 60 burger early in the year. But I think Ingram was out that game. I'll have to go back and check. So, we'll have to look at that one. But again, fair price on FanDuel more than on DraftKings. Not sure I want to pay that price for him. Again, I'd rather go to those Toronto guys and spend up a little bit with those injuries than go here. But Ingram, 8,200 on DraftKings, 8K on FanDuel is very fair. Playing Minnesota, which, there's upside. He had 55 against Golden State 2 games ago. Josh Hart back. I love his price on DraftKings at 6,300 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. Probably going to be a core piece for me at that price point going up there. It's just too cheap for him. I think you got to slide him in your small forward position here. Definitely going to be a core piece for me. Being back. He just plays a ton of minutes, plays almost high 30s minutes, and he does a little bit of everything. Close game like this, you got to play some of him. So he's definitely going to be a core piece. Herbert Jones, 5,800 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. He's looked really good defender. Really just athletic kid, has upside. And this matchup where they get up and down, this is a very interesting tournament play. I don't think I would play him in cash games at that price, but very interesting tournament play. Graham, another interesting tournament play, 5,600 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel. Not a cash play for me, and I can't play any of these other guys here. We talked about Sato being back, 3K on DraftKings, 3,900 on FanDuel. I don't know how many minutes he's going to see, though, just coming back, so not someone I really want to focus on. I think, cash and tournaments, number one guy is Josh Hart. And then, Jones, Graham, Ingram, Joe Val. Those are the guys I want to look at. And then the last game, Island game. This one starts at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So complete Island game here where we got the Nuggets going against the LA Clippers, 12.5 over under with Denver favored by 2. It opened up at 210, so it's going towards a little higher over under here. But again, it's the lowest total on the slate, even lower than OKC and Washington here. So if we look at the injury news on this game, Will Barton is out. They signed James Ennis is on a 10-day contract. On the Clipper side, we still don't have any Hartenstein, no Luke Kennard, no Justice Winslow. So on the Denver side, we know it's the Jokic show. He is $12K though. Over here on DraftKings, 11.4 on FanDuel. I like that price a little bit more on FanDuel, but you have to consider him. He does everything for this team. With no Will Barton, though, it's going to open up some things here. I really like Monte Morris, 4,900 on FanDuel, 4,700 on DraftKings. I think he's a guy that's going to have to just do more here. You know, we've seen him get kind of aggressive at times, but with no Will Barton, man, I mean, someone else is going to have to score besides Jokic. Jokic can't do it all. You know, I'm curious with them getting rid of Bol, they did sign DeMarcus Cousins, so you know we could see some Cousins here. Cousins is 4,700, 4,700 on FanDuel. Where's he at? Is he not even on here? Well, that's nice. I guess DraftKings didn't want to consider DeMarcus Cousins. Huh. Okay. Well, I guess we're not playing him on DraftKings. FanDuel's 4,700. I don't know how much run he's going to get, but we all know what Boogie can do, man. Jermichael Green is good value, 4,200 on FanDuel, 3,700 on DraftKings. I think a guy we can look at that can get some scoring done as well. I think there's some pieces here that you're going to kind of want. You know, if Jermichael Green is in that starting lineup for Barton, if they slide him in there, I think you have to play him at 3,700. It's just too cheap. Even if he only sees 25 minutes, I think he can get there. Campazzo showed in the past that he can get there. But again, I don't really love it with Monte Morris back. I think I'm going to focus on Jokic, Monte Morris, J. Mike, man, are the guys I'm looking at. I'm never a Rivers guy. Probably going to start and play a ton of minutes. 5,300 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings, so you can consider him on DraftKings. It's just a guy that I just never really considered. Did put up 37 against OKC in 32 minutes, but just tournament option for me. I know it's cheap, and again, with no Barton, someone's going to have to score. It's just comes down to the minutes and what he's going to do with them. So just a tournament option for me. But again, someone's going to have to score on this team. Over on the Clippers side, you know, we haven't seen PG-13 and Kawhi in a good hot minute. Marcus Morris is 6,700 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel. He's going to lead the team here, going to continue to shoot a ton. No problem here. Kind of funny in a sense, maybe he's going to, you know, I mean, everybody knows with the beef with Jokic and his brother Markieff, when Markieff kind of cheap shot Jokic and Jokic retaliated and his brother hasn't played in a while. So we'll see what happens there a little bit. Reggie Jackson, 5,500 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DraftKings. He just hasn't really done crap since PG-13's been out. I mean, just none of these scores are worth a damn. So don't really love him. It's Marcus Morris. It's been basically his team since he's been back. Zubac, 4,900 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. They might have to play him a little more against Jokic. They don't really have any bigs here. So I think it's basically going to be him and Ibaka. Ibaka's 4,200 on FanDuel, which is a great price point, and 4K on DraftKings. These guys are going to have to play a good amount of minutes going up against Jokic. So I do like both of them. And Ibaka's cheap, you know, 4K. I don't mind that price point. It's just they're going to have to go big here with Jokic. They don't have anyone else that can guard him. You know, and Ibaka is more athletic than Zubac is. So I don't mind taking some shots at those guys. It's just too cheap with the minutes that they're going to have to play. So I don't mind looking at those guys. You know, Man's going to be in that starting lineup, 5K, 4,700 FanDuel. Again, good FanDuel play. Batum's going to have to do something, 4,700 on FanDuel, 4,300 on DraftKings. I think there's some cheap pieces in this game that you're probably going to want. You know, but again, it's the lowest over-under. They get 105 implied team total. Marcus Morris probably, again, my favorite. And then I would look at those bigs, like I said, and Ibaka and Zubac. And then, you know, Batum and Man are more just tournament pieces for me. I'm not a fan of Reggie Jackson. Bledsoe's always a tournament guy, but man, his floor is so low. 4,700 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DraftKings, more just a tournament play. But I think you're going to want at least one of these Clippers guys, and I might set a rule that way because one of these guys is going to get here. They're just too cheap. So that's the 6-game slate. Hope you enjoyed the quick rundown. You know, first NBA, first look. We'll have cheat sheets up over at DFSArmy, core plays, leverage plays, got everything over there. Hope to help you win somebody. If you like this video and want to see more of them, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the flip side. Deuces.